Hello, welcome to Free Will, Science, or Religion. I'm Chandler Klebs, and I'm here with George Ortega and Anthony Bishop.
Hello.
Oh, yeah, hello, Anthony. Yeah, that was Anthony. And in this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about how to get the message that we don't have a free will out there. Because we've talked about why we don't have free will, and we've also talked about why it's a matter, why it's important to know, and the many benefits that come from it. But as far as getting the message out there, well, that's a challenge and one that we're still working on, even after over 150 podcasts. So, George, what are your thoughts currently about what needs to happen?
Okay, yeah, I was talking with Mitch about this yesterday, and one idea that came to mind is that, Trick writes for his blog, I write for mine, you write for yours, but we haven't yet, tried to write articles for online magazines, public interest magazines, news magazines, and all. Because I think, if we would do that, then like, we could establish a readership, get many more people to read us, and then then ideally, if we become known for that, then maybe we can get on some of the major media like Huffington Post, to really get big reach. So this, basically what I'm suggesting is that, again, especially someone like Trick, who writes a lot for his blog, if we just would create some articles and then just submit them to these different, just public interest, common interest magazines. How does that sound?
Well, it sounds like it would work, and here's why. Because while it's true that we already have great content out there, as you mentioned, you and Trick and I, we've all got blogs, like we've got YouTube channels, we have websites like The Causal Consciousness, and then Trick's whole website, and then Free Will is False that Mitch did. So we've got all that out there, but people, how would they find out if they've never heard of us before and they've never heard of this whole revolution of no free will? They wouldn't know to go to those sites, and so something has to introduce them to the idea. And George, you know how recently you had done that post about that political thing that got a whole bunch of shares, and I think that was because that was you submitted it to a site that was read by tons of people who were interested in politics. So that might explain it that people go to certain websites for their news, for their information.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the politics is important because a lot of people may not, understand this issue about free will to know how important it is to our everyday lives. But if we can tie it in, for example, with politics, in other words, like a lot of times the rich blame the poor for being poor and use that as an excuse for not paying as much taxes as they should and all. So this, we have several. We've talked about like the discrimination against fat people and stuff. There's various issues. Discrimination against gays. People blame people for being gay. Across the board. There's a lot of blaming going on. With political implications that we could tie those into the articles. Yeah.
Yeah, and George, obviously, people blame each other requires the belief in free will. And here's what I think is part of the problem as well is that people have this idea that life would just be all fine and good if these people over here weren't doing that and those people over there weren't doing that. And so, yeah, what they do is they target certain groups of people to demonize in a way. And without free will belief, they wouldn't do that.
Exactly. Anthony, what do you think so far? Do you have any ideas that we could use to expand our message?
Yeah, I actually totally agree with you on the subject where you should get like some sort of politics involved and all that. Because I mean, a lot of these controversies are surrounded by these sort of blaming people like disabled people for being disabled, and blaming other people like being gay and all that kind of stuff. And something needs to be done to help those people. And if you can bring it into politics, it would probably escalate to around the world because politics is basic. well, it's about helping, trying to live a normal life with the money, not getting corrupted and all that kind of stuff. But apparently, there's this like Prime Minister of our country in UK, or David Cameron. Apparently, he's been doing like offshore stuff. Like his father invested money across offshore areas, and they reckoned he wasn't paying taxes on it. So I mean, this kind of stuff needs to stop, and people needs to pay their taxes. They need to know where they're going wrong, and they need to help with this like free will and stuff, so it gets out even further.
Yeah, another thing, we have like a lot of young, especially like young black kids here in the United States, and they get into trouble. They break the law and stuff. But the Republicans, who are just horrible about this, they will blame these kids for being that way. They'll say, well, not every black kid is that way, whatever. With neglecting that these conditions that some of them have to live in, just make it so much more likely that they will, be involved in crime than let's say a white kid from a middle class neighborhood, So like, the this is like the Democratic Party is much more sensitive, much more appreciative of this understanding that, wait a minute, if people are doing things wrong in society, that reflects on a societal problem. You have to address that at a societal level so that people will just like behave better.
I agree as well.
Because here's what happens is that by trying to claim that that person of their free will chose to do this thing, whatever it is, they are trying to say that it had absolutely nothing to do with what anybody else in the society did. And that way, that keeps the real problem from being discovered.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, but again, so like it definitely has import in politics, and so like that's so when we get these articles out there, we that should be our theme. But let's try to explore some other avenues. Like, and one thing I think we should do, we've talked about this before, but I think we have to keep talking about it until we're motivated to actually do things. So in my life, that's what happens. Like I'll talk about something, and then it'll reach to a point where like the doing of it, whatever the next step, just becomes almost automatic. So like we've talked about creating a not-for-profit organization. Mitch brought up the idea recently also. And basically we can the more we talk about that, and with a not-for-profit, it's not that difficult. I mean, we can incorporate, I guess, here in the United States. Maybe it's easier in England. That might be a possibility. But just to have an international, free will refuting society, something like that, that refuting organization, that then we can like do several things. Then let's say we have a project like let's say we create an app, because we were talking about that also. And then, like, if we create this app, then we can put it on Kickstarter or one of these crowdsourcing websites to get funds for it. Because, like, it's much easier to get funds for a not-for-profit organization than it is for just an individual. So again, like creating this organization would be very important.
Yeah. I don't really know very much about how a nonprofit organization works.
Yeah, and so we don't know much about it ourselves. I mean, and it actually, I looked into it years ago. It really isn't all that difficult. It's just a matter of filing um, articles of incorporation, and it might cost $100, 150, but we could split it up, in some way, whatever. Some of us who have more funds can pay more, of course. Um, but it's not that difficult. You know, so
I think in a way, I mean, I suppose in a way you could get like people to give like charity funds for helping and all that kind of stuff with it. I mean, there's charity people out there who can actually help with sort of things like this.
yeah, well, that's the thing, Anthony, because like, yes, if because a not-for-profit is kind of like a charity. It's
Yeah,
designed to do the public good, and it's much easier to generate funds through a not-for-profit than through than just through just like being a private individual. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested in exactly how that would work. And why is it do you suppose that a nonprofit organization is more effective than an individual?
Well, because first of all, it's incorporated. It's a legal entity, and people trust a not-for-profit more. Basically, with a not-for-profit, you have to create a board of directors, and it's not really complicated. You get maybe like half a dozen people, and then we would meet maybe 2, 3 times a year, and we could actually meet through Skype. We'd have to be at the same place. It just provides for a bit more accountability, for the organization. We would like, I guess, create a bank account for it, and so like those funds are for the organization, and there's accountability. Whereas like if it's just for an individual, then a lot of the public, I think perhaps rightfully, would be a bit hesitant, wouldn't know whether this person was on the level or whatever. So the not-for-profit is it's just the way that the structure that people are much more comfortable with.
Yeah, so sort of a trusted solution, pretty much.
Exactly.
Yeah, so in a way, George, it would be sort of similar to a company because there would be like staff in a sense, like, well, this person does this part and this person does this part, and they would know that whatever this organization does, it's not just one person doing it all, but that there's a specified team of people that the public knows about, and there's like sort of a safety in numbers thing, maybe.
Um, yeah, I mean that's part of it. Yeah, if more than one person is involved, then we keep ourselves accountable with it. It's much more likely that we're going to like be um, be law abiding and just like have this absolutely. So all right, so yeah, and so the thing is, so like that's the structure. We create the not for profit, then like we can create apps. Um, that the app is the one thing, the one product that I can think of that we are actually already started it. I'm wondering if there, another product I guess could be like under the auspices of this not-for-profit organization. We've all written stuff on free will, or at least most of us have. Just have a compilation of all these separate articles that we've written into one book, and we publish it, for example, on Amazon. And that's completely free. I publish, Chandler, I mean, it's very easy to publish on Amazon. So just a collection of works, again, under the auspices of this organization, which would both maybe generate some income for the not-for-profit and expand our reach more.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting idea. Basically, take the different stuff that we've written on the free will issue, and then if that's combined into a book, then yeah, people can read the different people's perspectives on it, and then like the royalties from that would go into the bank account of the nonprofit organization.
Exactly. And with those funds, like if we need to, we can kind of like pay somebody to create like a professional website for us, to get a really slick presence, very professional presence. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's very interesting because, yeah, the main thing is how everything we do, if we get people talking about this issue to where it's not something that people just dismiss as not important. I think it needs to be moved out of the realm of philosophy because people that they don't take it seriously. And I think one way of putting it is that this isn't just about words and playing about words like philosophers sometimes do. This is about the actual idea behind it. There's this idea in this true autonomy that does things that is just that and immune from all causal influences. It's the idea we're trying to get at, and I think that this really messes with people's identity. That's the tricky part of it, and George, I'll say that it's similar to the whole evolution thing because how that challenged people's presuppositions. of what they wanted to believe, in fact, about who they are, of feeling special.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But channel, let's refocus because we know the problems free will belief causes us both as individuals and a society, and we also know the kind of like the struggles people have with accepting that we don't have a free will. You know, that's part of our material. But now let's continue to focus on these avenues. Anthony, does anything else come to mind in terms of like how we can continue to spread the message? You know, whether a business, a product.
Yeah, I mean, you could do it through Facebook, you could do it through Twitter and all that kind of stuff, and it would just go globally and all that. Because Twitter, I mean, that's pretty a big like website and all that, and loads of people go on to it. But we need something to zazz it up a little bit and just make it just stand out for people to be recognized and counted. That basically it's important for people to know about this kind of situations and all that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Mitch started a Twitter account. I think he's got about 200 followers. And you know, I think one of the things with that is that, like the people who follow him pretty much are on board. They're on our side already. So I mean, it's good definitely to actually no, you just like a good idea with Twitter, Anthony, is like with these 200 people, they'd be excellent people to draw into the project to get them like, you
Yeah,
know, let's say we to create an app, maybe some of them have you know, the skills to create the app.
yeah, that'd be fantastic. That would be, I mean, because get more people, and then those people would probably end up telling their friends about it, and it just double up them and create more of people to come and join in into the community.
Exactly. So Chandler writes, like, here's the thing. So this is a challenge to you because you're kind of like leading this, you know, this aspect of us. Now, you know, you might want to kind of like eventually find someone. Right now, I'm kind of involved in a few other projects, so I wouldn't be the person for this. But I think one of our challenges now, Chandler, is like to find the person to at least manage this. You know, and I think the way we do this is to continue talking about this in the podcasts. Maybe Quaid. I mean, Quaid is actually, I don't know if you guys know, but he is actually working on a novel that in a story format helps people understand that we don't have a free will. And that's brilliant because, like, you know, sometimes just telling something to someone doesn't work nearly as well as just like putting into a story and just like having their imagination really grasp it. So yeah, um that Chandler, you might want to kind of like send out a group email, like, you know, we want to like you know, start a not for profit. We want to like, one of the things we want to do is start talk about it, you know, on the podcast, but like, you know, see if anybody you know, wants to head it up. I mean, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and clearly, there's so many people. There's going to be somebody who has the talent to know how to do this and the knowledge.
Oh, and Chandler, no, it's a no-brainer. In other words, like again, like because I looked into, I got a book on this like a decade ago or so. You know, establishing the rules are different in each state here in the United States, but all you do is you get the forms, you fill them out. You know, you select your board of directors, you select your mission statement, and a few other things, which is pretty standard stuff. And then you send it off and file it away, and you know, automatically all of a sudden you're a not-for-profit. So that's as uncomplicated as it is. It really is simple.
Yeah, I'm sure it is simple for anyone who knows anything about laws. I mean,
And even for one, even for anyone who doesn't, because like, and maybe that's what we have to talk about, because I think in a lot of people's minds, people might be thinking, oh my God, a not-for-profit, how do we do this? When it really is it's like, you know, one, two, three steps and it's done. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So definitely worth talking about. I'm still in the stage of, well, it does sound complicated, like. Because, like, to me, it seems like the idea of isn't it basically like it's a legally recognized entity, like an organization that the government recognizes as a legal certain class of organization?
Exactly. And so when I published my book, I created a a business like known as like for the book I published under it's called A Happier World. So I filled out a form. I sent $35 whatever, filed the form, and all of a sudden, and I created I established a bank account for this business, and so now the money goes, that I get from the book goes into that account. Very simple. Chandler, what you might want to do, just Google how to start a not-for-profit, and I guarantee you, there's so many pages that'll just emphasize the point that it's really so basic. There's a few steps.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Yeah, I'll want to look that up. Yeah, so okay. Any other ideas? Let's see, because see, what I'm thinking about, George, is obviously the most effective way to market a message is one that somehow circumvents the fears that people have, that all their fears about the implications of not having a free will. And of course, we try to do that already with education. But I think it also makes a difference which people we're trying to reach too, doesn't it?
Well, that's a good point. 'Cause like, for example, if we're addressing the public, then yeah, we might want to go to these public issues, these political issues. But in terms of the harm it causes our relationships, our sense of self-esteem, that's when we would have to publish in, let's say, psychology or psychotherapy, even medical kind of like websites, whatever. Just like the unknown harm of believing in free will, things that most people aren't aware of. But and again, it's like that would involve some research. I think, if we divide the task between several of us, I'm sure we could come up with a good list of these studies that show that as people believe in free will, it harms their relationships, it harms their. So yeah, that certainly is another approach we should be taking.
Actually, it's an idea I've come up with. Actually, you could probably make a sort. I mean, something that would stand out and go like global is make a sort of like an animated movie of what it is all about, like a more of an in-depth analysis to it, to show you what all of its this free will is all about, and why we got no free will and all that. But do it in like a sort of like a children's type things, because really we need not just the like grown-ups to know about it, but mostly the children as well, to start them off.
Well, Anthony, I mean, I think the animation is a great idea because, like, a lot, especially young kids and young adults, really appreciate that media.
Yeah,
It may be a bit risky because like some parents might say these people are trying to get our kids to believe that nothing is up to them, and they may
yeah,
be very fearful of that. But so like with your
yeah,
idea, I think the challenge is like, yes, to reach out to these animators. See, that's the thing. So like right now we've been working as a group on our own. With this idea, Anthony, we would just like find an animator who knows how to do this stuff, but is looking for good content. It's looking for a good idea to base a film on, and that's where
yeah.
we could like write them. Absolutely.
That's cool.
And what's interesting is, like you mentioned, parents are very concerned over what their children are being taught and all that, which is why there's so many battles about what is or isn't taught in public schools and that sort of thing. But so yeah, here that's the tricky part is, um, I mean, ideally, we want everyone of every age to be able to understand this because it benefits everyone. But I'm just trying to think, yeah, more about which people are the best communicators. I mean, which, yeah, I don't know, like which people do people listen to the most? Do they listen to scientists? Do they listen to philosophers? Or do they listen to politicians? Or do they listen to religious leaders? Or do people just really listen to the people around them that they know personally more?
Well, I mean, in terms of leaders and politicians, I mean, we need to take this in steps. In other words, like if we frame it right, the leaders will be behind it. As a matter of fact, Obama, back I think in 2012 in Virginia, he said this speech like, you didn't build that. It was about a bridge that. that one individual was claiming credit for building and all, and he was saying, like when people build things, we all build it, we all take part in it, and like he got some flack because like this Harvard journalist tied the idea with free will, and kind of like rightly said that Obama was kind of like suggesting we don't have a free will. So he got some some backlash on that, but the approach was right. I mean, I think the politicians that people do listen to need to tie it to the problems that we're facing. I mean, like, if you guys read my book on climate change denial and free will belief, you know, to the extent people understand that, when these scientists are telling people, you know, what we're doing is endangering civilization, like in 100 years, it might be catastrophic because of what we're doing now. When people hear that and believe in free will, they're saying, "Oh my God, that means that I and my friends and my family and everybody I know are such horrible people for doing this, right?" But the problem with that is that, like, because people believe in free will, they blame themselves and they can't deal with that. So like, so that to the extent that we can like explain to people, wait a minute, fine, we are doing these things, but it's not our fault fundamentally because we don't have a free will, then people don't have to go into denial about it. People can say, yeah, all right, it's happening. It's not our fault, but if we care about our kids, our grandkids, great grandkids, then we'll do it. So like, so that's just one example of how we need to tie this into like, the major issues that people care about. And you're right, Chandler. I think, then with something like that, when it's in place, when a certain amount of people get it, then the politicians would jump on board. Then the politicians would have something else to say that they know would have a good amount of backing.
I think it is good when it's tied with other issues of great importance. And see, here's what's particularly interesting is you've tied it to the climate change thing before. And I've tried to connect it to the abortion issue and to the whole vegan thing. Realizing we don't need to blame ourselves, and by when we don't no longer have that guilt and that horror of thinking we're bad people, then it's easier for us to change because then we're focused on, well, what do I need to do to make this right? Rather than like, oh no, I'm awful, I must be punished. So there's a whole different mindset that comes once people start to get it, and then it's I think solving the problems is much easier.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what else? Again, like just focusing on these products. What else? So a book, an app. Again, like the not-for-profit is important because it establishes the foundation for all this. Um, I mean, ideally, we could like I don't know if you guys know of this company called the Learning Company. That they I mean they do great jobs. They hire these college professors to um to do a series of about 25 lectures on a topic. And actually there is one on free will. I don't know if you guys have heard it. It's by somebody who actually believes that we have free will. So it's not as nearly as strong as it could be. But if we could get somebody that speaks well enough, I certainly don't because I every other word I say like and but but
Yeah, too.
if we get somebody, that would be another avenue to put out a series of lectures on this, to go through each of the points in MP3 format or something like that, something people could download.
Oh yeah, because being able to listen to stuff really does make a difference. Um, like for example, my mom is constantly listening to like these great courses by the teaching company.
Right, that's the one I'm referring to.
Oh
Yep.
yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that's right. Now that I think about it, it's by the teaching company. They have these great courses. So she'll be listening, Robert Greenberg, who does music courses, or she'll be listening to Bart Ehrman, who knows all this stuff about the texts of Christianity and Judaism and all that. So yeah, people they get a lot of good out of these lectures in either DVD or CD format usually that they can watch or listen to and just learn all this incredible stuff. So yeah, if there was a way to really get a course out there by someone that people listen to and who has a reputation for knowing what they're talking about, and then they do a course on free will that real accurately represents what's going on, that will be major.
Right. Another idea that just came to my mind as you were just saying that is like, again, once we establish the not-for-profit and we get funds coming in, like for each meetup account, you're allowed 3 meetups. You're allowed to host 3 meetups. So basically, an account costs about 160 American dollars a year. So, again, that would be very little money, I think, for the not-for-profit. Then we create, these meetups, like one in, let's say St. Louis or Lee Summit, Missouri, another one, in the UK where you are, Anthony. I mean, just like create more of these meetups to bring even more people into to work with us on spreading the message.
Yeah. I mean, there was I mean, I listened to a lot of Elvis Presley songs, right? And there's this like little lyric trying to find, but it's not really handy at the moment. There was a song I listened to one of his a long time ago, and he mentioned in it about like life is like a play. With each of us has got to play like our own sort of part in a play, and that's where I think how our life is basically. We're like in a sort of a musical. We're not going around singing and dancing, but it's kind of taken us to different approaches about where we're going, where we're not going, who we're talking to, who we're not talking to, and it kind of like gives it that perspective view on life that our life is all played out for us already.
Absolutely. Shakespeare said the same in his play As You Like It. One of the characters says, life is a play or something like that, and men and women are all actors, playing our roles. So
Yeah.
yeah. All right, Chandler. So I know you got to get going to have dinner with your mom. And we've gone, I guess, over the 30-minute mark. So, but this is a good first step to just like to start talking about this stuff again. The business angle. We've talked so much about why we don't have free will. We've talked about why it matters. Now we've got to focus on how to get the message out there. So and this is new territory for all of us because we know the other stuff pretty well. So this is stuff we'd be learning.
Yeah, it's definitely a learning curve because, as you know, George, I'm just used to, the whole informal thing, how we're just friends and this is all, yeah, it's all totally free, no money involved. And so I guess I'm just nervous about the idea of having money even transferred because I guess I have some fear about, oh no, what if somebody gets in legal trouble and somebody gets sued, and you know what I mean? I guess I'm just nervous about that.
And those are the kinds of things we need to talk about. Those are genuine, concerns that you have and probably others of us have also. But yes, so as we talk about them, we kind of like, get the knowledge we need and we can proceed just knowing what it's all about. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why we've got to talk about it, obviously. So, yeah, so I guess we can end this episode for now, and then I guess tomorrow we'll be talking at 6, right?
6 year time, 7 mine. Yep.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. You've been listening to Free Will, Science, and Religion with Chandler Klebs, George Ortega, and Anthony Bishop. And we've been talking just a little bit about what we might need to do from a more organized business end of getting the message that nobody has a free will out there, how we'll work together, how we'll deal with all the details of that. And we'll probably be discussing this for many more episodes too. So stay tuned. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.